Hello everyone! Today we are going to finally do an updated palette collection. I'm going to go through this as quickly as I possibly can because I know that I have said I'm going to do this multiple times and then I never actually get around to it because it takes a really long time to film and it's not that easy for me to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top here where I have some palettes that were on display and some stuff that I have not put away yet. This giant stack here. Have not found a home from them yet. But let's just get into it as quick as we can. So first one I have here is the Kat Von D Saint Sinner. This one has been sitting on top of one of my shelves at the top of my room, kind of out of my filming shot, but I use this quite a lot around Christmas. People always say that I have too many palettes and too many eyeshadows and I'm gonna never get through them, and it never looks like I use anything, but I promise you that I do. Basically what happens is I rotate through my palette so much and so quickly that they may get used more than you think they do, but I don't actually do a lot of damage. I'm actually pretty gentle with my eyeshadows as well. I just picked up this little Huda Beauty Mauve Obsessions to give Huda a chance because I did go on a little bit of a rant about how I didn't love her makeup. So far, I don't really like the textured shadows in this one, and I am undecided on if I will keep it or not. I also picked up the Electric Obsessions, which looks like this. This is kind of a mini dupe for the Electric palette in my opinion. Same thing about Mauve Obsessions. Not sure if I'll keep it yet. I haven't had enough experience with it yet. I was not super impressed with the swatches though. Picked this one up around Christmas. This is the ColourPop Semi Precious. These are actually quite beautiful, and if you can get your hands on this, I would strongly recommend it. It's very much worth it. I tried to dupe this out with other shades I had in my collection, and I actually couldn't. This stack of palettes is all in my recent video, so I'll just run through them super quickly. This is the Give It To Me straight from ColourPop. Still in testing, don't have much of an opinion. My Little Pony. This is also still in testing, so I don't have too much of an opinion on it. This is the Kathleenlights Dream Street palette, and I actually have been using this quite a bit over the last 2 weeks, and I really like it. It's something that is not super common in my collection, and I kind of like that about it. This is all of my Juvia's Place palettes that I own. This is the Nubian, the Saharan. By the time I'm done this video, there's going to be so many of those plastic things on the floor. The Zulu. I really like this one. I've been using this a lot too. Sorry guys, had some technical difficulties there. This is the Masquerade Mini. The Nubian 2, I'm excited to get into some of these yellows and oranges in this one, and that blue specifically. I do find some very similar shades in the Magic palette in comparison with the Nubian 2, which I totally get will happen, but if you have one, I don't think you necessarily need the other. Moving to my box at the back here, this is a custom MAC palette that was customized for me. You could actually buy this. I believe it's the Neutrals or something. I can't remember. But this was pre-built by MAC. This is my own pre-build. I actually had a friend who was a friend who used to be a millwright for Estee Lauder, so I used to get all kinds of mispackaged items and miscolored items, so I have quite a lot of MAC eyeshadows. And not from me buying them, a lot of them were given to me by him. So, same thing, these are just a bunch of custom MAC palettes. As you can see, I used to be super into these. I don't really touch these so much anymore. I should probably gift them to someone. These are my black and blues. And then I had greens, whites, and extra blues in this one. Everybody's favorite, this is the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. For those of you that don't know, I am in Canada and I did actually get this from the Ulta website with no duties and no extra charges. So I think I paid about 50 bucks for it at the end of the day though with the conversion. Something I would like to point out for anybody who is really hoping to get their hands on this, if you go like this and you block these colors here, it's pretty much just a neutral palette. It is very nice, don't get me wrong, but it is just a neutral palette at the end of the day. These are my other 3 Morphe palettes. This one is the 35S. I don't reach for these as much as I should, and not even should, but I don't reach for these as much as I would like to, but I am trying to work through things. This one is the 35C, which is mostly matte colors. I believe it's all mattes. Yes, it is. And then the last one I have here is the 35N, and this is basically just a 35 neutral. So if you look at this one compared to the Jaclyn Hill palette, it's actually fairly similar when you really come down to it, but this is all mattes. I lied, I have one more Morphe palette. This is the 35B. This is basically colors that are matte and shimmer. My 2BH Cosmetics palettes that I have up here are the Party Girl. This one had a tragic fall. You can see here this guy is a little bit mangled, and this yellow is probably one of my favorite yellows that exists in the world for eyeshadow. I had bought this 4th edition 120 color palette when I first started YouTube, and honestly I really did like it at the time, but I never ever use it anymore, and realistically I should probably get rid of it, but the nostalgia is just so real. So it has 2 levels. There's no mattes in here, which is really its biggest downfall. Okay, so this is my Drugstore palette drawer. For the most part, it is just Drugstore palettes. This guy here is the Wet n Wild Not a Basic Peach. I'm gonna do my best here. I'm kind of at a weird angle. I have not formulated my total thoughts on this yet. I have used them both, and I don't hate them, but I actually think their old formula was better. This one is in Rose in the Air. So moving through here, this isn't necessarily Drugstore, but these are my melt stacks. I have it in Dark Matter and Lovesick, and apparently we've had a massacre on the blue shadow at some point. Oh no. This is the Sonia Kashuk Ion Neutral 2. I have actually hit pan on the white in the top corner here, but since I got the e.l.f. Made for Matte, I don't actually reach for this so much because they're very identical, and I feel like I like the formula on this one a little bit better. Reaching in the back here, we have the Magnifies Color Edition by Rimmel. I just recently did a review on this. I'm very impressed with the color payoff in this palette. Hey guys, remember when I said I wasn't going to talk a lot when I did this? I lied. Again, my main issue with this is that there's only 2 mattes, and it's these 2 here. But if you like color and you have mattes to support it, highly recommend. Apparently we have more than one thing that's not actually Drugstore in here. This is the Clinique, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to intentionally blind you. Clinique Black Honey, I believe. Black Honey Wardrobe. I bought this from the Estee Lauder sale, and unfortunately I don't reach for it very much. Maybe I should make this a declutter as well. Imagine. I don't know if I'm mentally ready. I can't do it. Okay, so this is a Physicians Formula little palette in Smoky Nudes, Insta Ready Multi-Finish Eyeshadow Palette. I have this in 2 shades. So I have this guy and this guy. I find these very powdery, not sure if I recommend. This one doesn't even look like it's used, so this is now going in Shop My Stash. I picked up the All About Roses from Essence at Generation Beauty. I think they gave this to me for free. I haven't touched it very much, so maybe that also goes in Shop My Stash. I'm gonna have to go re-watch this every time I do Shop My Stash so I can remember. This is a NYX Trio that should not be in here. Never reach for this either. I'm actually going to declutter that. I have 3 Milani must-have neutrals. So I have it in Everyday Eyes, which looks like this. I also have Bare Necessities, which looks like this. And then this one is Earthy Elements, which is by far my favorite, and I take this when I travel normally. Moving to some CoverGirl palettes, I have the Roses and the Jewels. I recommended these as well as the Milani in my palette recommendation tag as the best drugstore eyeshadows. I believe I also recommended the e.l.f. Mad for Matte too. So this is the Roses and the first one was the Jewels. My husband bought me this for Christmas. This is the NYX Perfect Filter. I really like this, and it is a minor dupe to the Anastasia subculture, but I like the subculture more. Obviously, it comes with a little bit more shade selection. This is the Maybelline Burgandy Bar. I have a wide selection of the Maybelline palettes. This is by far their best one. I highly, highly recommend this one if you like these tones of eyeshadows. They are crazy pigmented, and I actually have one of my most popular Instagram photos is me using this palette. Since we were on the Maybelline palettes, I also have the blushed nudes, the regular nudes, the smokes, and the brights. None of these I really like that much. Most of them are subpar at best, especially for the cost of them. But the blush nudes, if you had to pick one of these four, is probably the best. I have 4 sleek palettes. This one is the I Divine in Acid. I'm going to probably do a post or a video on the best neon eyeshadows, and this will probably be in it. This is the sleek palette in Snapshots. Good Lord, my nails are going to be destitute after this. Apologies for Athena, she will not stop barking. This is the Lagoon palette. I used to really love this palette. I wore it all the time, which is why it's such a mess. The last sleek palette I have is the Ultra Mattes in version 1. And honestly, I don't even know how I end up with all these bright colors all the time, but holy hell, I need to spend more time in these drawers. These are the L'Oreal La Palette Nude 1 and Nude 2. Not my favorite. We have another NYX Avant Pop Palette. I think I talked about this in my last palette collection, but these are actually the same color, and this is a sort of misprinted palette, which has never happened to me before. These came in, I believe, BoxyCharm and I want to say FabFitFun when I was getting those boxes for a while. This is the Nude collection by Pure Cosmetics, and these are dupes for the Naked 2 and the Naked 3. The last palette I have in here is the IT Cosmetics Naturally Pretty, and I used to use this all the time, but I have other palettes that have kind of bumped it because it's really just a bunch of mattes. So this drawer is my more high-end palettes. This one is a Marc Jacobs Holiday palette, which if I'm being totally honest, I can't actually remember what it's called. I will comment it somewhere here, but this is what it looks like. It came with a blush, bronzer, highlight, and then 6 eyeshadows. I've stopped buying Marc Jacobs makeup because I find that I buy it because I like how it looks, because it looks kind of luxury, but then I don't actually end up using it very often. I find myself reaching for other things. This is the Marc Jacobs About Last Night palette. This is probably the only Marc Jacobs thing that I do reach for frequently. Moving to my next Marc Jacobs, this is the Vamp. And I've actually put this in Shop My Stash twice and have not been able to make a decision on whether or not I should get rid of it, but here it stays. My Makeup Forever Flash palette over in the corner here. One of my most prized yet disappointing possessions is my Natasha Denona palette. This is in the blues and purples. They are beautiful shades, but I'm not entirely sure if it's worth the $300. I'm gonna have to go ahead and say it is not. My first Huda Beauty palette, this is the Textured Rose Gold palette. Looks like this. I was never in love with this, and to be honest with you, I probably should have taken it back because it can be easily duped by other palettes. Plus the textured shades are kind of, you gotta use your finger, and I don't love applying makeup with my fingers. If we move down another drawer, this is most of my Lorac and Anastasia Beverly Hills stuff. I'm gonna pull out some things from the back here because they've kind of fallen behind, and I wanna make sure I go through them properly. So on the side here we have the Jeffree Star Androgyny palette, which I bought from Beauty Bay. This is the Crown Glam Metals, which was in a recent BoxyCharm video. Looks like that. The Lorac Pro Matte. That's number like 5 of those plastic things that's fallen on the floor. My Modern Renaissance, which is everybody's fan favorite. And I know I haven't hit any pans in there, which is shocking to a great many people, but whatever. The Anastasia Self-Made palette. Most of these I know the names of. I'm just checking to make sure I actually know them and don't misquote, because the last time I did this and I was misquoting, people were pissed. The Anastasia Subculture, which is probably the most controversial palette of 2017, but I actually really like mine. I'm not super savage with my shadows, so I've used this probably about 70 times, and there's no pan and there's no massive holes or dips. The Anastasia Maya Mia palette. This is the Artist palette by Anastasia. I hope by doing this you are thinking of some palettes that might be in your collection that are a little bit older. and it might make you reach for them again. This is the Anastasia Shadow Couture. Pink Champagne in most of these palettes are definitely a favorite. I personally really like it, and I know a lot of others do as well. This is the Anastasia Tamana palette. And I believe this is one of my last Anastasia palettes, which is the Lavish palette. Yes, there is a glaringly obvious gap in my Anastasia collection that I did not buy the Mario or the Soft Glam, and I'm glad I didn't buy either of those or the Prisma palette. Moving on to Lorac, we have the Lorac Pro, sorry, the Lorac Gold Unzipped, which looks like this. If you have this palette, please tell me how much you love Unleashed right here. Then we have the original Lorac Unzipped, which I could actually reach for a lot more. I do really like this palette. And then we have our pros. So this is the Lorac Pro 3, which was sent to me by Color Me Cassie because she is such a nice person. The Lorac Pro 2. And probably my most used and damaged palette in the existence of the world is my Lorac Pro 1, which is the original Lorac Pro. I actually have hit pan in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shades, and as you will see with the rest of my collection, that is not a thing. I have both the Lime Crime Venus palette, which looks like this, and the Venus 2, which is a little grungier and looks like this. This is fairly new. I haven't had time to play with it too much. We have another palette from BoxyCharm. This is the Winky Lux Kitten palette. It looks like this. Kind of reminds me of the Shadow, what were they called? Shady Lady palettes from the Bomb. This is the Urban Decay Emerald palette, and yes, I know this is a million years old and I should probably, you know, use it or do something with it, but nostalgia. Over in the back here, we have some of the MAC Cameo Collection. I actually have 2 of these. So there's this one, and then I have another one that is somewhere. I don't know where it is, but it's in here somewhere. It should be in the same drawer, obviously. I did not put it back in the same place. I'm so sorry. I keep banging my light here. When I originally got into YouTube, BH Cosmetics was really just coming on the scene, and they were highly, highly loved and recommended. So this is the Hollywood palette. And this is actually pretty good. This is my second one. My first one I used a whole bunch of, and then I lent it to my sister-in-law, and it had an unfortunate demise, so she was nice enough to repurchase me another one. I also keep my Makeup Forever palettes in this drawer, so I have the Artist Shadows 2, 3, and 4, and just to do them in order, this is number 2, which is what I got first, number 3, which is more muted, and then number 4, which is all mattes, and is actually one of my more favorite palettes that I don't reach for as much as I wish I did, but it's because I keep them at the back, and when I keep things at the back of the drawer, they get forgotten about. Also in the back of this drawer, I have my 2 Studio Makeup On The Go palettes. One is in Cool Down, and the other is in Warm Up. So this is Cool Down. It's a bunch of purplish type shades, and then Warm Up is more like golds and golden browns. I do try and keep some sense to my palette collection. So this is most of my Kat Von D palettes. Some of it will be mixed up just based on sizing, but I'll quickly go through this drawer. So these are from one of the Masterclass palettes that I actually took the casing away from. So these are both from Smashbox. This is the Kat Von D Pastel Goth. This was, I like it, but it wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. I thought it would be more like neon pastels, and it didn't really work out that way. Noble Makeup actually picked this up for me before she came to visit me one time, so thank you so much, Kristen. This is the Japonesque, what is this called? Pixelated Color. This is really good, actually. I should use it more. Now getting into Kat Von D and some cargo. So this is the Chrysalids Palette. I bought this when it was on sale, when they were kind of closing out this style of palette. The Shade and Light Eye Palette. Moving to cargo, I bought a bunch of cargo palettes from Winners because they're not easily available in Canada, and this one is, which is it called? Let's Meet in Paris. So what they do with their palettes is they actually kind of theme them to whatever they're called. So all the names in this are themed to Paris. This guy here is the Northern Lights Eye Palette. Same kind of deal, all themed to the Northern Territories. Tati Westbrook from Glam Life Guru actually made me buy this guy. This is the Harvest Moon? Vintage Escapes, not even close. Oh, Harvest Moon is one of the colors. That's funny. This may be Kat Von D's most disappointing product she's ever had, in my opinion. This is the Serpentina palette. I really like the shades, but if you see these two dips in here, let me tell you how I've only actually used this palette twice, and that's where we're at, because I just couldn't get them to stick to my eyes at all. It's funny that we should discuss her worst palette, because this is probably one of her best. This is the Metal Matte palette, and I freaking love it. I got a lot of compliments on a blue look I did recently, and I did use these shades here at the end. I have certainly talked about that palette before. One of my most hated palettes, this is the Stila Eyes Are the Window palette in Body. This is the Lorac Pro Brunch palette, which kind of goes with this Pastel Goth, where it wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be, but you get the general idea. This is a old school Kat Von D palette. This one is Ladybird, and I really wish that she would actually re-release this, because this is such a fantastic palette. One of my favorite matte palettes for sure. There is my other MAC Cameo palette. This one is in Keepsakes, and this is what it looks like. This is like the smoky eye one. And hiding at the back here is one of my Sigma palettes. This is the Resort palette. I wore this in my engagement photo shoot, and I still love this, but I'm so fearful that I will not be able to get it again when I hit pan on it. I've effectively stopped using it. This is probably one of my most full palette drawers, so this one may take a little bit longer to go through. These three palettes are from the original Grand Chateau, and this is the brown one. There is a purple one and a pink one, I believe. So there they are. I still use these from time to time, so I'm going to keep them for a while. This is the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea version number 3. Just going to zoom in a bit just because it's kind of a different shot down here. This actually came in BoxyCharm. Isn't that great? My two Tarte palettes, my two Tarte rounds I have, the original Aqua Lilies I still have and use periodically, and then this one is Make Believe in Yourself. I posted a picture on Instagram because this was a palette I used quite frequently, and I actually dropped it off of my off of the top of my Alex palette one day, and it was shattered into a million pieces and totally heartbreaking. I'm going to go from the back now. This is one of the Tarte special editions for the holidays. This is from 2017. Looks like this, and over here there was a mascara, liner, and a lip product, which I normally had pulled out, but I put them in there for a video and then I forgot to take them back out. Probably my favorite palette from 2017, even though I realize it says 2018. They released it as a planner. So the planner is over in my other drawer with all my other planner stuff, but this palette was amazing. This is the Boss Lady Agenda or Boss Beauty Agenda. I can't remember which one. Some previous year's releases from Too Faced, a few of my favorite things. So I've stopped being sucked in by these releases because they are essentially the same thing each year, and I'm just not about it. Same with this one. Everything Nice was from a previous year, but again, if you look at this one and a few of my favorite things, they are very, very, very similar, and I'm annoyed at myself for being sucked in. However, they are both very nice palettes, so I don't necessarily regret it for quality, just for duplication. The Stila Whole Lotta Love palette. Really did give this a whole lot of love. There is some significant dips in this palette. It also came with one of my favorite mascaras. I have the two Tartelette palettes, so Tarte, the original Tartelette, and then the Tartelette in Bloom. I did actually get way more use out of Tartelette in Bloom than I did from the original one. I'm going to try and do this so it makes sense, so I will start to pick and choose based on brand. This is the Tarteist Pro which I was reaching for quite a bit until I actually picked up the Tarte Holiday Palette, and I was starting to use that more. This is the Graveyard Girl Swamp Queen palette from Tarte, and I have actually abused this quite a bit. It is definitely one of my favorites. I'm trying not to blind you with the light, and it's not working out. Damn these reflective packages! I think that's all for Tarte, so we will move on to this massive line of Too Faced. One of the most controversial palettes on YouTube is the Power of Makeup by Nikkietutorials palette. I did this in a giveaway. Once I had my giveaway over and I kind of was moving into trying some new things, this definitely went in my drawer and was never touched again, which is kind of disappointing. I didn't hate mine as like most people did. This is the Too Faced Just Peachy Mattes. I have the Clover palette, which people know I love. I've been writing about this a lot and posting about it a lot. The Too Faced Chocolate Gold. I bought this for myself for Christmas during the VIB sale, and this is probably one of my favorite of the chocolate palettes. I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably is my favorite. It has more of things that I would use, like more shimmers and more like kind of out there shades. Now we're going to get into some classics. So we have the Sweet Peach, which smells like peaches, obviously, which I'm sure you've seen around from here and there. The Original Chocolate Bar, which I am almost hitting pan on Champagne Truffle finally. Don't know if you can tell that from here, but I have like the original one where I had to actually write the names of the shades onto the palette because I lost that plastic thing ages ago, and that's just how I live my life. It's also the super thick one. My last two chocolate bars are the Chocolate Bonbons and the Semi-Sweet. And I believe the Semi-Sweet has now been discontinued, which I think is weird that they discontinued this over the Chocolate Bonbons because I think the Semi-Sweet was actually better. Super old school is the Pretty Rebel, which somehow managed to get ripped and makes me kind of sad. I wore this a lot while I was in the process of planning my wedding and getting married. So this is what I wore for my bachelorette. It was what I wore for my showers. This was heavily used for a very long time. It's actually something I should put in Shop My Stash because I used to really love this. On to my 9-pan palettes. We have the Too Faced Cat Eyes, the Peanut Butter and Honey, which I know was not very popular on YouTube and just as a general consensus, but I actually really like it because I like yellow eyeshadow quite a bit. The Too Faced Bonjour Summer, the Too Faced Totally Cute, which I had all these stickers and I chose to only use the one that was the name of the palette because I just liked it that way. Too Faced Sugar Pop, which I think was in my products I bought for the packaging that I actually bought for my friend Mel's wedding because her wedding theme was very heavily based around macaroons. And then we have the Too Faced Peanut Butter and Jelly, which I was totally late to the game on, but very happy that I have it. So this drawer is my Urban Decay drawer. It's also kind of a mess, so I apologize. I will go through this as quickly as I can. I know we're getting a little long here. So this is Alice Through the Looking Glass. Again, this was in packaging that irritates me, only because I feel like it is hella overdone, and that makes me sad. So this is the packaging. Like, tell me this is not beautiful, but also super unnecessary considering that this packaging really only needs this. I will go through some of my classic palettes as well in here. So we have the Urban Decay Naked, which was obviously one of my favorites for a very long time. I hit pan on Toasted and put a dent into Sin. Like I said, I moved through my palettes quite a bit, so this stuff is older, but man, didn't get the love that you think it doesn't get the love, but it does. This is the Naked 2. I've hit pan on Booty Call and put a dent in YDK. I wish they would release Booty Call as a single. The Urban Decay Naked Heat, which was my Guess That palette on Instagram most recently. Naked 3, which is all the rose-toned colors. And then the most disappointing of the Nakeds, which was the Naked Smoky, which I haven't used too much. I have both of the Jean-Michel Basquiat palettes. So this is one. I bought these on clearance after saying I wasn't going to buy them. I went on a rant about these recently and I wrote a blog post on them as well. I really love this one. It is definitely right up my alley and more my type with the colors, but there they are. Another old school palette. This is, I believe, the Urban Decay, I want to say Dangerous palette. I cannot remember, but I'm pretty sure it's the Dangerous palette. There is significant dents in all of these. If you can't tell, when I do use my shadows, I'm super, super gentle with them, so there is not typically visible dents, even though I've used stuff a lot. This is the Urban Decay Electric. I reached for this a ton. I went back and forth on buying this for a long time, and then I ended up buying it randomly one day. It's the After Dark, and I actually reached for it a lot. And then I made the mistake of buying the Beauty with an Edge, even though I feel like that's not what it's called. And I'm sorry, I can't help but blind people with this. When I look at this guy, and I look at the After Dark palette, they're very similar in my opinion, and I kind of wish I had noticed that sooner. Like, that is basically that, and then the other side is basically this. I don't regret either purchase. I do just wish I had been paying more attention and maybe not done one or the other. This is what the Naked Smoky was supposed to have replaced, but this one was definitely much better and more, and much better curated in my opinion. The Urban Decay Gwen Stefani, never reached for that. Starting to get into the nitty gritty here, we have the Naked Basics 1 and 2. And in 1, I have hit pan on Foxy. I was definitely using this as a base shade for a while. And then we have the Naked 2, which looks like this. But I've been reaching for a Naked 1 much more often. The Basics 1 anyway. And then we have the Naked Ultimate Basics, and I know this was not a lot of people's favorites, but it really worked for me because I don't have a ton of purple shades and orange shades in a matte formula, so I really like this to support other palettes. And yes, I agree that the packaging was kind of cheap. I have the original Spectrum palette here. I'm like trying desperately not to have it shine the light in your face, but it's just not working out in my favor. This is kind of like a nice jewelry box type lid, but and then I don't know what would be the lid for the actual palette. This is another one of Urban Decay's releases that kind of made me go, huh? Because it was not very pigmented and they were supposed to be super about their bright colors, and I feel like this just fell flat. Like, it's so chalky and not very nice. My Vice palettes are all in the back here. I really love the Vice palettes. I'm actually going to move these out of here so that they're not difficult to get to. This is the Vice 4. Oh, sorry. This is totally the Vice 3. This is the 4th version of the Vice palette. Vice 2, which is probably one of my most used palettes other than the Lorac Pro. The Vice LTD Reloaded. So part of the reason I really like these palettes is the spring load on the casing, so it actually stands up under its own power. I bought this and didn't use it very much because I feel like I bought it when I was kind of in a really busy time in my life and I didn't have a lot of time to play, so I'm going to actually keep this out so I can play with it. My last Vice palette is the Vice LTD, which I actually had a really sweet friend of mine get this for me as a surprise for my birthday, and I almost cried when he pulled it out because I was so sad I missed the release. It was only available in Canada for maybe a quick 15 minutes and that was it, and I'm not even exaggerating. Okay guys, so we're coming close to an end here because I'm only doing my larger palettes, no singles, anything like that. This is my last drawer, so I hope we're ready to finish this up. This is the Meet Matte Nude. These pan sizes are massive and I could pull this out definitely to use it more often. The Bon Jovi Rockstar palette was a love of mine for such a long time, and it was honestly the first palette that I thought that I would hit pan on in REM, but honestly other things came about and then it was kind of over. It went into the drawer, never to be seen again. I think this year needs to be a year of really using stuff I already have. We were discussing on a Facebook group about actually doing reviews on things that were like oldies but goodies, and like how tutorials are only based on things that are new, and I don't really agree with that. This is the original Brazil palette from BH Cosmetics. Lots of great shades in here, kind of bright, kind of love it. This is the Galaxy Chic palette, again the original. Two more Lorac Mega Pros. So this is the Mega Pro 1. I did choose to pass on the 2 and the 3, they just did not speak to me, but I did actually end up picking up the Mega Pro 4, and I ordered this when I ordered the Jaclyn Hill palette and they came together. And I've been using this a lot. Another BH Cosmetics palette, whoops, almost dropped you. This is Eye on 60s, and honestly I feel like we could have maybe just stuck with the Brazil palette because this does about the same thing. I recently did a review on this. This is the Bond.com palette from Jolie Beauty. I want to say that this is definitely probably one of the coolest things I own, and I use it way more than you think an adult woman would use a glitter palette. I have two Violet Voss palettes. This is the Drenched Metals, and I also have the Holy Grail palette. If you have Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance, you definitely don't need this Holy Grail palette. It's basically the same thing. This is another Balm palette just getting mixed in here. This is the Balm Voyage. Again, massive pan sizes, and it has 3 lip products in the bottom. Just going to give this a better view for you. I never really used this all that much. I'm not really sure why. There's nothing really wrong with it. Something I didn't reach for all that much. It was almost like it wasn't complete enough for me. The next 3 palettes I have are the Sephora Pro Palates. This is the editorial, which I did an in-depth review on my blog, and actually duped out a bunch of the shades to things I already had in my collection. If you're interested in that, I will leave the link down below. I actually love this palette, don't get me wrong, but it is definitely dupable. This is the Sephora Pro palette in Cool. These are also palettes I'm going to pull out. So these are basically the Sephora version of the Natasha Denona palettes. But if you look at this one, even here, like this one line at the top here, all the shades are essentially the same. And even these two here are essentially the same. They just have a mild different undertone. And the last one I have from the Sephora Pro line is the Warm palette, which is honestly so beautiful. But same thing though, like we're getting some very similar shades. Like these 3 at the top are very similar. This section here is very similar, just a matter of a few steps up of tone. And even these 2 are very similar. When you swatch the Sephora Pro palettes, you can tell the difference in the shades. But I'm not sure if the difference is enough that on the eye you'd be able to tell. In the back here we have the Smashbox Masterclass 2, I believe. So this one actually has the plastic covers on the top. This was in my original palette collection, but you know, it's looking pretty good. A couple of Kat Von D palettes at the back here. This one is the Spellbinding Eyeshadow Book. I'm honestly seeing so many things I need to pull out and use way more than I do. This is like a self-shaming for me. And this is the Star-Studded eyeshadow book as well. Looks so pretty, guys. Look at it. I missed out on the Mi Vida Loca palette, and I'm still bitter about it. Still bitter about it. And now we're getting into my Z palettes, so I will kind of rip through exactly what's in here. So I went through a rampage of depotting a little while back. So this one includes a bunch of Wet n Wild shades I'm sure you recognize. These 2 here are Makeup Forever. This is a Bora Bora. I can't remember who it was by, but I know it's called Bora Bora. These 3 are Stila. This is a random highlighter, and then we have some Bare Essentials in there, and I believe this is a random either Luxe Beauty or Makeup Geek, but I can't get it out. These are all my Makeup Geek shadows because when I was first into YouTube, Makeup Geek was life, so this is what I was using all the time. And honestly, I should pull these out. I still love Marlena, even if a lot of people don't. She's had a tough go lately. This is another palette of Makeup Geek shadows. I believe this also came in a BoxyCharm, even if it was just the Z palette, but these are all Makeup Geeks as well. This is an Ofra Z palette type thing. It's not actually a Z palette, but it's basically just a magnetic palette, and these are 6 Ofra shadows, and I believe these 3 are Makeup Geek as well. Yes, they are. And last but not least, we have my last Z palette, which is actually the Makeup Geek Z palette. But these shades on the bottom here are from the Makeup Forever Artist Box from a few years ago. And then these are a bunch of NYX singles that I was able to depot. I don't really like them. I'll probably get rid of these and maybe depot some other things that I have, because I have some other singles that I'm just not reaching for the way I would like to be. Anyway, friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. And if you have another palette collection you would like to see, or sorry, not another palette collection, but if you have another collection video you would like to see from me, please let me know. If you watch my original palette collection, you will notice this is a little bit more pared down compared to what it used to be. But when I moved, I did give away a few things. So I hope that you saw some new stuff and some things that you may know that you have in your own collection, and now you can kind of go back and revisit those things instead of going out and spending a bunch of money on things that we already have, which is what I have been trying to do in the last year or so. So thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye!